Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. We've got lots of games to talk about, some stuff, other stuff. We'll start pre-show with Russ on somebody who's a rock and roll.
Lots of games to talk
about. You got to shut that thing down, damn it.
I know. I lost track of it.
We'll start with a classic rock hero.
Yes. So Peter Frampton has announced that he's on his final tour because he has some sort of muscular disease that will prevent him from playing guitar in the future. I don't know the fancy name of it, but needless to say, he's on tour one last time. And I don't think I've ever seen him live. But again, when I was younger, Frampton Comes Alive, when that came out, not only was it a massive hit, it was just massive, like everywhere. In your neighborhood, your parents were listening to it. You were listening to it. It was
the funny thing is in the annals of popular music, I don't know whether the only other example I can think of is Kiss Alive, that you had a live album that was so over and above successful than the studio album that included the same music. I mean, Frampton Comes Alive was like multi platinum. And made him into an absolute superstar. And the album that, like, "Baby I Love Your Way" and the other popular songs, Lines on My Face. Yeah, no, right. No, I don't even think that album went gold. But Frampton Comes Alive went just nuclear.
It went nuclear for a couple of reasons. Like, look, he's a great guitar player that probably doesn't get enough credit. Because,
Humble Pie. He was in Humble Pie.
Yeah, and he could play lead as well as anything. But the other thing about it is, and again, I don't know, it was sort of like that mouthsichord thing. Whatever he was playing at the time was a great gimmick. Yeah, we all sort of mimicked that.
It was a mouth organ or something like that.
Yeah, mouth organ. Yeah, that was tremendous too. But there was just some sort of energy that you. Again, this is why I love live albums. This may have started my love of live albums because on my iPod, there's probably 75% is live music and the rest studio. But there's just some sort of energy, and I don't even know where that was taped. Yeah. I'm going to look it up now.
Yeah, look it up. But I mean, where
that show was recorded.
Yeah.
I think it was JFK Stadium.
Where?
I thought Frampton Alive was at JFK Stadium.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, you look it up on Wikipedia. It probably has it, but sure. I'll tell you that, obviously, "Baby I Love Your Way" is just a brutal song. I mean, it's a pop song. I get it, but again, that's one of those songs that sort of got beaten into the ground. But other like I was saying, other than I was a Kiss fan back when I was a kid because everybody was in the Kiss army who was my age. Their first three albums. The just original Kiss, just a self-titled, "Dressed to Kill" and "Hotter Than Hell" were mild successes. But when Kiss Alive came out, everybody got it. Everybody listened to it. Everybody dressed up like Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley.
I mean, I didn't. I was roller skating to Kiss though.
But I was a little young for Kiss. Like I feel like I was like 2 or 3 years young because
Kiss Alive was 76 or 77.
I was a few years old.
I was 8 in 1976. I feel like it was just like if it had been like 4 years after that, I probably would have been into Kiss, but I didn't. I never got into them because they were the kind of thing I don't think people got into like retroactively. Like I got into Yes. I got into Yes later in life.
You had to be a specific age, but the thing is. But the thing is that Frampton had the big hit, Frampton Comes Alive, and then his next album, I think it was called "I'm in You." And it had a couple hits, but he never regained that popularity. And then the next thing he was in was that dreadful Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band with him and the Bee Gees.
All right, so here's where it was recorded. It was recorded at Winterland in San Francisco.
Okay.
And this one's a shocker. The Long Island Arena in Comac, New York.
Okay.
SUNY Plattsburgh. Why in the world? Plattsburgh is the only place the sun doesn't shine other than Buffalo. My good friend went to SUNY Plattsburgh.
It could be acoustics. It could be that. I mean, I'm pretty sure the Kiss Alive was recorded at Cobo Hall in Detroit.
Well, I've done live shows, and I can tell you usually what it has to do with is if the venue has like good, like you say, acoustic mic, or even more than that, like a good recording studio that's connected with it. Like if you have something that's like, like if there's a really good studio that says, yeah, we've done stuff in Plattsburgh before, it's really easy. Sometimes those places that are obscure like that are easier to do because they have less
the Comac Arena though was where they played hockey. The Long Island Ducks played there, and I went there as a kid, and they were the goonish of teams. Like they were just like
that was John Brophy's team.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Let me ask you, because since you are a recording artist in the recording industry, I mean, a lot of live albums, they record the music live and then they dub in the vocals.
Yep.
I know that like the Goo Goo Dolls did a live album in Buffalo. They did it down in downtown Buffalo during a rainstorm.
Yeah, and I got that one. I have it on my iPod too.
It's great, but I know people who were at the show and said that the vocals there were not as good as the vocals that they heard. Now, maybe they recorded it and maybe they did some audio tuning or whatever, but I think that they sort of maybe dubbed over what they sang.
Yeah, they usually everything's recorded on its own track, obviously. So recording your own vocal after, I've done live albums where we did both. Often with the lead, you do it. The backgrounds are often okay. The problem is that in order to get that live sound of a live recording, you need to have a mic in the room too, several mics in the room.
Right.
And if you're redoing your vocal and it's off to what the room mic shows, which is going to be always the same,
right?
Then you have issues, And then I've actually been in a situation, not with me, but with another band where they had to redo so many vocals that they had to redo the room mics, which is what they did is they took the whole thing once it was recorded, put it back into a big room, and just played it out of speakers in a big room, with a crowd to kind of like get that sound again. It's
let's have Eck break this down. This is interesting how Frampton Comes Alive was recorded. So it was the Winterland stuff was on 24-track master. The other concerts were on 16-track recorder. Then the recordings from the 4 shows were used from the original album. Master tapes were recorded at 15 inches per second using Dolby A, which again, back then was a big deal.
That was a big deal, yeah.
But give us an idea, why would it be at 24 on one and 16 on the others? Like, why not 24 on all of them?
It probably had to do at that time, because this was 1970,
75, 76, 77.
It probably had to do with really something as stupid as, not everybody had the same thing, So it was like, I mean, now everybody has a studio in their house that's a musician, but back then, studios were still rare, and even to get like the 24 tracks in 75 was still new. I mean, that was pretty new at that point.
Yeah, okay.
The Beatles were in 4-track, remember, and then they were in 8-track.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Pink Floyd recorded Dark Side of the Moon on 4 tracks or 8 tracks.
I thought Dark Side was actually 16 tracks, but I think that was Alan Parsons who did that album.
It was Alan Parsons,
brand new at the time, and it was hard to use, because what 16 tracks meant back then were 2 8-track machines running at the same time.
You want to follow
this album, and then Mike, you can go. This album was a bargain when it came out. Remember, it's a double live album, which is ballsy. Not everybody used. The only double live albums I remember were Yes, Kansas, this, Kiss, and maybe 1 or 2 others, and that's it. Most of them were single live albums. So this is a double live album for $8.
3 sides live by Genesis.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it was.
That was much later. That was in the 80s.
That was 81 or 82.
Yeah.
But anyway. But okay.
$8.
$8. Yeah. Oh, please. Yeah. I mean, I used to get albums for $5.
No, but a regular album was $7. The double was only $8. They really underpriced it.
If I didn't get it for $7, I would peel a label off of something else and put it on the record.
Oh, you're the worst. I would get the cutout albums. Remember I told you they would cut out the top?
Yeah, so if you bring a razor and just cut it out yourself.
Yeah. Oh, that's what you would do, Mike?
Sure, why not?
Oh, you're the worst human being. You just
Let's start the show before I has to leave.
All right.
I have to leave very soon, guys. All right, let's begin. Ready? I lost you guys.
We can hear you. We're all good.
I know, it's good somewhere.
You don't need to see us. Who cares?
Please. It's probably better that you don't see it.
I do. I see you now. All right, here we go. I needed to know the date. So, Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, March 6th, 2019.
I'm Michael Lagello.
I'm Russ Cullen from Sportsology.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill in the comings and goings in the hockey world. And I am sorry I'm going to be out pretty quickly today because we had to move the time around and I've got kids to pick up and stuff like that. But I wanted to touch base real quickly, first of all, on a couple of things I saw last night in the games that I thought were really fascinating. And I don't know if I should do that or should I get into my blog?
Do whatever you want. You got your time. You know.
Yeah, we're gonna go over the game. We're gonna go over the game.
Let's go over my blog then instead, because that was kind of fun. And this is something I'm hoping you guys really didn't look at it yet.
I did not.
I did not.
Okay, good. It's always a good bet.
Not for lack of interest.
Yeah, sure.
I just been running around all day.
Nothing like your co-hosts on never looking at it. All right, so what I did was I went to the I went in and I wanted to do some research because I had heard that if you wanted to go to the all-time NHL standings, like win percentage since a team entered the league, what would the order be from 1 to 31? All right, and it's really fast.
What's the best winning percentage of all time?
Of all time, so. I mean, so it doesn't matter how many years they played; it's just winning percentage.
Right.
They range from the lowest being 30, the 31st team being a 477 winning percentage, and the top team being a 634 winning percentage.
That would probably be Vegas, since
that would be Vegas, right? Which is obviously that's like a one. But so let's take Vegas out. Vegas does have the top winning percentage of all time. They've only played a year and a half, but that's still impressive when you consider. That they're an expansion team, and the California Golden Seals, who played several years, right? They played.
They're the worst. I would imagine. Yeah.
They played.
No, they're not the worst.
No, Cleveland.
No, but they played like 400 games in the NHL. So you're talking about I was looking at them. They had a 343 winning percentage. The California Golden Seals.
Wow,
that's astonishing. So who is the top team after that, guys? And we don't have to. I'm not going to make a guess too hard, but I'm
going to say Quebec, Colorado.
Nope. This should be pretty obvious, actually.
No, it's gonna be the team that won the most cups, so it's got to be Montreal.
It is, although the cup winning thing has nothing to do with this because this.
Yeah, I don't think.
No, but I'm telling
that's why I didn't say
this is regular season. So, but it is Montreal.
Okay.
It is Montreal at 588. But after that, it really gets crazy, like really fast. For teams, even though so the next team entered as part of the 1967-68 era. So
Penguins.
No, that would not. The Penguins. Check this out. The Penguins are 17th. You
got to remember the Penguins. I
remember how bad the Penguins were for a while there.
The Penguins had 2 stretches where they were the worst teams in the league. Probably Philadelphia.
It would be Philadelphia, who is the 3rd best winning percentage of all time in the NHL at 576.
Okay.
And now, so they're followed by Boston at 560, so there's another original 16.
Which I'm a little surprised at because Boston pre-Bobby Orr were not, other than the Kraut line, they were not a very good organization.
They've been pretty good in our lifetimes, as far as us watching.
Right. Post 1970. Yes.
Yeah, from the 80s on, Boston's been generally pretty good. They haven't bottomed out anywhere. Right. But the next team is a team that entered in 1998-99 at number 5.
Not Anaheim.
Although Anaheim is on this list at number 7, which was surprising. And
where are the Sharks on the list?
The Sharks on this list are number 10.
Okay. Yeah, that's 98-99. Was that Minnesota?
No, Minnesota entered in 2000, 2001, but they are number 6 on this list. So you've gotten 6 at Minnesota, 7 at Anaheim. Number 5 would be the Nashville Predators.
Okay.
With a 554. So
they should have a minimum amount of games, though. That's where it gets a little.
Yeah.
I mean, but you're talking about. Minimum amount of games. You're talking about even the Predators have played for 20 years. I mean, that's
no, but they all. Yes, 20 years, but then the Canadians have played the whole time.
No, the Canadians have played exactly. The Canadians came into the league in 1917-18.
Yeah, they're an original.
The Vegas Golden Knights came in 2000. The Vegas Knights came in 2017-18. So think about that.
Yeah, they have
99 more years.
1.5 years.
That doesn't help them, right? Obviously, but at the same time, when you look at the bottom of this list, so I was thinking the same thing. So the recent teams have an advantage. Well, no, number 31. Who's the worst?
Well, you said California Golden Seals.
No. The 31 teams we have still now. The franchises we have.
It's got to be a long time bottom dweller that's never had much success.
I'm talking all time winning percentage Peter.
Now, are we like if we're talking California? Are we talking California / Cleveland / Minnesota?
Yeah, we're talking about franchises that exist now. Okay, so
then I'd say the Arizona Coyotes.
Arizona would be the worst. Arizona / Winnipeg entered 1979-80 with a .477 winning percentage. So that's 79-80. Then after that comes Carolina, who entered at 79-80.
Hartford / Carolina. Yeah.
Right, Hartford / And then comes your first Canadian team at number 29.
Canucks.
Vancouver Canucks, right? Yeah. Entering in 1970-71.
His first word.
1970-71 with a .487 percentage. Then at number 28 comes a team that entered in 2000. There's a recent team that entered, entered in 2000 for number 28.
Contrast the two. I'm still not looking at the list.
Ottawa's a good guess, actually.
Both teams that entered the league in 1970, Vancouver and Buffalo. So Buffalo's got a much better record than Vancouver, right?
Let's contrast that. Buffalo is number 8
Buffalo screwed the Canucks on the 9 versus 6 on the draft ball or whatever it was.
All right.
What's his face?
Same amount of cuts.
Gilbert Perreault versus Dale Talon.
Yeah. Both searching for a ring, so don't worry about it.
The Sabres are number 8 on this list, right? So 537. So they are really solid.
And just consider this: the Sabres are going to miss the playoffs for the 8th straight year, and they're still 8th overall, and so far ahead of Vancouver.
Right. For a while there, they were probably.
But they still won nothing, Mike. That's my point.
I know.
No, but so the interesting thing here is, for example, so when you keep going up, so if I was to go to the top, the original 6, they go in this order. Okay, just the 6 would be Montreal, Boston, Detroit, the Rangers, Toronto, Chicago. So that's the winning percentage in that order. And I'm not surprised by Chicago because Chicago was in the original era. They were the Arizona Coyotes.
Chicago was the armpit of the NHL until they got Bobby Hull and Nikita in the late 50s and won in 61. That's why Ted Lindsay was like sending them to Siberia.
Yeah. They are Toronto overall in this list. If you were to put Toronto overall,
they're pathetic. They're pathetic.
They sit at number 20.
They're pathetic.
Right above a team though that won 4 Stanley Cups at number 21, which is the New York Islanders.
Well, at least they're better than them.
Just had a lot of bad, and then a good stretch of good, and then mostly bad.
Yeah, no, it's really
a little good mixed in. I mean, that's why they're there. I mean,
and then just above, I mean, just slightly above the Maple Leafs at number 19 is another original 6 team with the Rangers. The Rangers are at number 19.
Yeah, they've had some long stretches too. They have
5-12. But the Ottawa Senators, number 16.
That's pretty good for them. I would have thought it'd be worse.
The Senators are ahead of the Penguins. Dallas, directly ahead of the Penguins. Actually, almost exactly the same winning percentage, oddly enough, in the regular season. The winning percentage.
I think the Penguins would take what they've managed to accomplish.
Yeah, no, I mean, but, at number 15, the Edmonton Oilers, who I would have thought, was.
It just shows you. Like they should be a lot higher.
Yeah,
but I mean, it just shows you what the last 20 years have done.
They entered the league. They entered the league as basically as a playoff team. They beat Montreal. I don't know if that was the first year or the second year, but then they won. And then they won 4 Stanley Cups.
Yeah,
or 4 with Gretzky, and then continued to be a good team. But then, I mean, you see how they've been the last few years.
Years.
I'm going faster. I have to get off pretty soon, but
before they were in it, but then that's the last time they've been in the cup. I mean,
right. Yeah. So the WHA merger, which you remember was Quebec, Edmonton, Hartford, Winnipeg.
Right.
Those 4 teams in 1980. The team that's done the best of that merger is Colorado, Quebec.
That's no shock. I mean, that's why I thought they'd be one of
Arizona. Winnipeg, Arizona.
They're the best team of that merger is at number 14. And what's odd about this too is that you look at Arizona and Carolina, 31 and 30. They're 2 of the WHA teams, right?
Yeah.
So at the very bottom of this list, 2 WHA teams, which I kind of found interesting. I mean, the fact that the Flyers are number 3 all time, and the next team from that 1967-68 thing, St. Louis at number 12.
Yeah, St. Louis. Remember, they made the playoffs 20 years in a row. It's just. Yeah. It's just postseason success. That's the problem.
I'll give you the other team that really shocked me on this, and that's Washington coming in at number 13.
That is a little surprising because they've had some big dips in their in their existence.
Yeah, I mean, I think of them for a very long time as being very, very bad.
But you got to remember, like when they had Stevens, when they did go on a nice, probably 8 to 10 year run with those guys. That was a good team. I mean,
absolutely, and they've got a better winning percentage than the Penguins, who are at 17.
Yeah, that's really shocking, actually.
Isn't that surprising? When you think of the two teams, I really think of Washington. Yeah. Washington at 526 winning percentage, the Penguins at 515.
No.
I really think of the Penguins, and I really would have thought the Islanders would have had a better
you have to remember that the Penguins dynasties are counterbalanced by the fact that before the dynasties they were a pathetic team for a few years that allowed them to draft high.
Many
so
years.
It balanced out. It's the teams that are sort of like at a pleasant mediocrity that are over 500. They make the playoffs every year, but then don't do anything in the playoffs like St. Louis did for years.
Well, what we're learning from this list is, the constant winning but not winning the cup is not doing their fan bases any favors.
Favors.
It's like a big tease. It's like
another shocker. Who has a better winning percentage, Florida or Tampa? Wouldn't you think in a heartbeat that this would be Tampa?
No, because Tampa was really awful.
Tampa was awful in the beginning. Florida got Jovanovski and went to the Stanley Cup.
They drafted LeCavier number 1.
Tampa's at number 26 on this
Edmund list. Number 2. Stamkos number 1. I mean,
I know they've been really good lately. Obviously, you're right. But Florida, Florida's number 23. The Devils, who won all those Stanley Cups, are at number 24. But then again, remember, the Devils were the Colorado Rockies, right?
Right.
And before that, they were something else, right? I'm trying to remember. I think Colorado was somebody else.
Colorado was somebody else.
Was Colorado the Cleveland Barons, maybe?
No, not the Barons.
I got to remember.
Were they the Scouts?
It might have been
Kansas City Scouts to Colorado Rockies.
Right.
We don't need you, my guy.
The NHL team of all time. So you have to realize, I mean, as far as records go, they were absolutely horrible. The Winnipeg Jets / Atlanta Thrashers come in at number 27 with a 492 winning percentage.
It's nice that you mentioned the Thrashers. I'm sure that makes Peter happy.
I'm just saying.
He can carry less.
And the other thing that I haven't mentioned that really, really shocked me, that I have to go, guys. I'm sorry that I have to
Ron Hainsey played on the Thrashers. Go ahead.
Yes, I know. Another team that really surprised me. Now, Edmonton, I said, was at number 15. Where's Calgary?
18.
Calgary / Atlanta Flames. The Flames were.
Oh, it's going to be 25. Yeah.
Calgary would be number 11.
Oh, wow.
How crazy is that?
That is crazy.
I mean, what has happened basically is that since Edmonton went south, though, over the last, younger people on this who are watching this will say that, of course, but
the Ginla Calgary was a great era.
They had a longer. They didn't never win a cup, but they had a longer run than Edmonton did as far as being a top team. They were a good team and had a lot of horrible playoff exits.
Battle of Alberta all over again.
But they actually finished ahead of like the St. Louis Blues, which is number 12. That to me is just behind the Sharks. So it's a fun list.
Yeah. I never get any of this guessing right. So
I wouldn't have gotten any of this. This really surprised me. That's why I went, because I saw it and I'm like, I had to put this up because it really does show your era that you watched. What era did you watch hockey? Like I watched hockey
too many eras.
Well,
yeah, but
really, I watched the Golden Seals. The Golden Seals had white skates.
Yeah.
Yep.
My real memory, I watched hockey in the 70s, but my real memory is around 78 to 79. That's when I really that's when I was 10. So that's like sort of that's when
72 is when I got into hockey. I was into other sports before that. Yeah. 72 is really when I got into hockey.
Yes, you would have seen a lot older than I did.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's all the time I have. I'm sorry I have to run so fast today.
Okay.
We'll be back.
Just don't end the show, Ak.
I'm not ending the show. Thanks. See you later. Thanks, guys.
All right, see you.
Thanks, everyone.
Russ mentioned Ron Hainsey being on the Atlanta Thrashers. Russ, he was on the Seattle Millionaires. So it's like, or the Seattle Metropolitan,
Vancouver Millionaires.
The Vancouver. I was gonna say the Seattle Metropolitans or the Vancouver Millionaires. So come on. All right, let's talk about some of the games last night. Peter, let's start with the one that I'm sure you watched a little of, which was Tampa Bay and the Jets. The Lightning keep marching, 5-2 win over the Jets. Are the Jets concerned because they've been sort of little, okay, but not great?
Look, I think any team that loses to the Lightning shouldn't do some sort of detailed self-analysis of your flaws, because that's just what the Lightning are. They're that good. I mean, you just, I don't get to see them a lot. And the Jets won an OT in the first meeting back in December, and it was an entertaining game.
Yeah.
I thought the Jets were going to make a game out of this, and they tied it 1-1. And basically all they could do was just hang on. And eventually the Lightning just overwhelm you. I think one of the interesting things about the Lightning that people really have to understand about them is what they do on the ice isn't just beat you with speed. They know exactly where they should be at all times, and they do it with speed.
Yeah.
You can be fast and completely chaotic. They're neither. They're both. They're fast, and they are super ridiculously disciplined to whatever system it is that Cooper has built in. However you want to describe it or model it, it's freaky. And
when you have guys that can play at speed but don't make mistakes, it's hard to cover, man.
I mean, positioning, the way they read a play and turn and say, you know what, that's dead, I'm getting back. Next thing you know, the Jets are moving the puck up the ice, and they've got two guys going into three Lightning players. The Lightning were just in the offensive zone. It's like, how did that happen? Because they read plays and they know how to regroup. It's almost like they're rating what's going on in the offensive zone and saying, this is dead, forget it, let's not try and force something here, let them get the puck and we'll just get it back later. It's nuts.
And they can play almost any style. I mean, if they come up against a team that tries to be more physical, and Winnipeg is more physical, I think they can turn on the Jets and make them look foolish. Now I saw
teams are going to trap against them in the playoffs. They are.
Right.
That is going to be the way they're going to combat the Tampa Bay Lightning. Is it's nice during the regular season, but the minute the playoffs start, they're going to start trapping.
Yeah. Now, Peter, I saw some tweets come out about Hellebuyck taking a shot off the mask from, I think it was Kucherov.
So,
was there any?
Yeah, Kucherov let loose a ferocious blast, and I think he was hoping he'd catch Hellebuyck out of position and maybe get it in, but it went a little high. And it hit him square in the forehead. Hellebuyck took his mask off, and he was bleeding.
Oh, wow.
Like, he had to go off the ice. He had blood coming down. I mean, it's actually amazing he returned. Like, I can't believe it wasn't.
But the mask didn't shatter, right? So that's probably from the screw that's holding things in?
Yeah. It was like right up here because it was right on his eye. So he had to go off. Brossoit came on. It was a power play. That made it 3-1, and the Lightning were done.
Yeah.
Hellebuyck came back.
I didn't watch that game, actually.
Yeah. Well, it was, exactly.
I watched like 4 other games.
You rarely see a goalie take one off the head like that, bleed, and then come back in the game. So credit to him. But, the Jets didn't play poorly. They didn't play great. It's just the Lightning make every team. They expose all your flaws. It's crazy.
The game I concentrated mostly on last night was the Bruins and the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes wearing the Hartford Whaler jerseys at TD Garden, which I thought was weird. And of course, Jack Edwards, again, as we brought up when they first played in Carolina.
Always.
Oh no! But he brought up the retired number of Pi McKenzie and how he took extra pleasure at the end of the game when the Bruins eventually won in overtime.
That's what I meant by the over the top.
Yeah. It was like something about whale and blubber and just whatever. I mean, I think Jack is entertaining, but it was a little bit over the top. But that's what you sort of expect. But anyway, it was a 4-3 Bruins victory. They have not lost in regulation since January 19th. They're 13-0-4 in the last 17 games. The thing I noticed about this game was Carolina took a 2-0 lead, and it really didn't phase the Bruins, Russ. They came back. They tied the game in the second period. They get a shorthanded goal from Bergeron. Carolina comes back, ties the game, forces overtime, and then, as I said on Twitter, Justin Falk did his best Jake Gardner imitation, giving up the puck after Jake DeBrusk did a nice job forechecking, and then DeBrusk feeds Krejci for the winner. I mean, I know people can say the Bruins may be peaking too early, but I don't think they care. They're just damn good.
They don't care. I was watching a lot of that game. First thing I took into account is nobody can cover Sebastian Aho anymore. Like, it's just unbelievable how much better he is than really any of us thought. Like, I thought he would be like a 60-point guy. And I thought I was probably very flowery on him and what his point potential could be in this league. And I'm not even sure he's reached it yet. Like, he's at 75. He could probably go to 85.
He was a second round pick. Second round. I mean,
I know, but it's also the way the game is now. It fits him very well. I'm going to go out on a limb here too and say, if I think about everything that a player means to the hockey game and their team, Bergeron's the second best player in the league to Sidney Crosby. He really is. He does everything. Yep. He is everything to the Boston Bruins. I mean, we just taped the show for SiriusXM, and we were talking about the Bruins a bit, and it's amazing some of the detailed video work that they do, and it involves Bergeron teaching the youngsters. Mm-hmm. Like, they want tapes of Bergeron because he doesn't do anything wrong. Right. That's amazing stuff.
Well, and I'm not to sound like a Neanderthal and like that we're in 1974 here, Peter, but honestly, if you want to beat the Bruins, you send somebody out and you get Bergeron. You go at them and you try to take them out, because that team's not the same team. They can lose Pasternak, they can lose Marchand, they can lose Chara. If they lose Bergeron, they're in trouble. And I'm not saying somebody should go out and do it. That's not what I'm advocating. But I'm saying in a do or die situation, it's got to pop into somebody's mind. If we just send somebody out and like low bridged them, I mean, what I'm saying is that's how valuable he is. That's how good he is.
So, in the 2003 draft, of the 44 players taken ahead of Bergeron, only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 have played more games than him.
Yep.
And if you did that draft over, who do you take ahead of Bergeron right now? Who went ahead of him again?
I refuse to do the draft over, so you could do this with Mike.
I know, but you know what I mean? Like
yeah. Oh,
would you say there's a better player who went ahead of him? Would you take Fleury ahead of him again? What about Stahl?
All right, here's the thing about Fleury.
What about Suter?
Wait though. With Fleury, they traded up to get him, and they did that because they needed a franchise goalie. So that's I don't know if you can count Fleury in that, because he wouldn't have gone in the spot he went in if there wasn't a desperate need for Pittsburgh to go and get him.
And honestly, if they had to do it over again, I don't think that Pittsburgh would have exposed an 18-year-old goaltender to the NHL as they did. They brought him right in. They drafted him first overall, and they brought him right in. And he got destroyed the first couple of years because they were a terrible team. But that's
they almost ruined him.
Yeah, I mean that's not the way. That's not the way that you protect a young goaltender like that. You don't expose him to that. But to your point, and I think if you look at Bergeron's record, he was a rookie in like every like he was in the Q, he played 1 year. Then he was in the AHL, he played 1 year. Then he was in the NHL. Like he was never like a lengthy thing where it was a stepping stone. Every year he was a rookie in the league, and then he moved on. He was so that good that he could just step in at each level as a rookie. And he was good from the very beginning. He stepped in and he was good right away. So yeah, I mean, he's an incredible player. I mean, and that's why.
Here's a fun trivia question.
Okay.
How many NHL games did Hugh Jessamine play?
I was like 6.
2
with Florida, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeez. I mean,
I was there. It was the most amazing draft. And, obviously the fan in me, that part was a little agonizing. I never liked the pick at the very beginning. But that draft at the time, you knew it was a great draft. Like, you knew, but even over time, it's, one of the probably top 3 or 4 drafts ever.
But
for what it's produced.
But the most amazing thing, and we'll move on to some other games. The most amazing thing about the Bruins right now is they're doing this without Pasternak.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's arguably their best scorer, but they've moved Dan Heinen up to the number 1 line. They playing with him and Marchand, Bergeron and Marchand. they're not skipping a beat. I mean, I'm sure when he comes back, maybe when he comes back, they slow down a little bit, because sometimes when a successful player comes back in the lineup, everybody takes the foot off the gas pedal a little bit. But I'm not even sure about that. They just, when you haven't lost in regulation in over a month, it's an incredible
But
feat.
you told me something stunning. You sent a message about Backus, David Backus, and the fact now that he is basically turned enforcer for them because he can't keep up with the pace, and it's like the only role he could play right now with the team to sort of stay in the lineup. If you remember when he was signed, I was against the signing because of the foot speed problem,
right?
And that became a problem instantly. That wasn't even one that was like, maybe in a couple of years it'll be bad. It already started to show at the beginning, if you remember, and it's just gotten worse every year. So now here we are.
And just to expand on that, Backus fought Michael Furland after Furland knocked Marcus Johansson out of the game. Johansson left the game concussed. It was a clean check. It was shoulder to shoulder, but Furland is so much bigger. It was sort of like the echo effect, or reverberation that and Johansson has had concussions in the past. And then on the next shift, Backus challenges Furland, and Furland wins the fight, but then falls awkwardly, and he left the game with some sort of upper body injury. So, so I mean, and this is for a Carolina team that is not extremely deep at forward. So,
well, they do have guys. They do have guys in Charlotte. They do.
Yeah, but I'm saying somebody who can have the equal effect of Furland. I don't think so. I mean, maybe
they could bring up Netchus, and that might get the equal value.
He can score. There's no doubt. I'm just saying they're keeping him down there for a reason. But
I know, but they're loaded down there. They're a first place team, are they not?
I'm not sure. You'd have to check.
First or second. I mean, so they've got guys.
They've got Jake Bean. They've got Neckes. They got Gauthier. They got a few players. So
the big guy.
Nicolas Waugh.
Yep.
Yeah, so
he's a big guy.
All right, well, let's move on. If you find out what, let us know. But the Blue Jackets,
they are in first place.
They are in first place. The Blue Jackets, I think, they won a game they absolutely had to win, but it was in doubt for most of it. It was a 2-1 shootout victory. I watched the shootout, Russ, and Cam Atkinson put a move on Corey Schneider that I think he's looking for his jock right now. Because
I don't know. I mean, then he had to go against Panarin. I didn't realize Panarin before that goal was 66%. He's higher than 66% in the shootout. That's ridiculous.
Why would you not use him in every shootout?
Right.
That's what I'd like to know. Because I think it was like 13 for 18. Why isn't he like leading that, like in terms of attempts? That's what I don't understand. There's no way
you could blame Schneider in that shootout, because he went from Atkinson, who's like 38%, to Panarin, who was 66%. Like, they just killed him. It was. But you know what? We did talk about this. Columbus does have an edge over some teams where, like I said, they could play their best players. And a lot of games like that in the shootout and overtime, their best players are better than your best players.
Yeah, and Peter, they put out Atkinson and Panarin as their 2 and 3 in the shootout, and the first two for New Jersey were Blake Coleman, Pickle Juice Coleman, and Drew Stafford, who stick handled himself out of a shot. I mean, they are so bad offensively. And when
they have better guys. This was a reward for what they did during the game, and I don't believe in that for the shootout. I think
if there's a guy who's exhibited that he's got a little bit of jam during the game, and you don't normally use him in the shootout, and he's showing some reasons why he might put the puck in the back of the net, that's not because you won a few puck battles in the defensive zone.
Correct.
Right? Like, you can reward, but you go on a gut saying, you know what? He had about 6 different looks. He rang the post 3 times. He was in position. Let's see what he can do. It's all hard work, grit. He was great.
I want stone cold killers on my shootout. I don't want guys. I'm not rewarding anybody. I want the guys that undress everybody in practice.
If Toronto and Calgary had gone to a shootout on Monday, I could say thumbs up to giving Tyler Ennis a chance in the shootout, because he scored a hat trick in the game, so he was hot. But
that's fair.
Yeah. Okay, the Islanders win 5-4 in a shootout over the Ottawa Senators. The news out of this came this morning when it was reported that Robin Lehner is out, and Christopher Gibson, a former Leaf farmhand, was called up from Bridgeport. Now, Russ, you said it was a concussion. I mean, if this is serious, then
that's what I read.
Yeah, then we go to Gibson and Thomas Grice, with Grice playing most of the games. They won yesterday. They're comfortable right now. I think they're like 6 or 7 points out in front of the wild card teams, in front of like the 9th place team. But it's been mostly Leonard, and if they take a step back, it's probably.
But Grice has still had a really good year, though.
Yes,
he has. I mean, he's got a 28 save percentage. He has been really good. He's going to have to be good for a spell here. This morning when I was on Sirius Radio, I actually used a NASCAR reference. I couldn't believe it, but I basically said that Washington is like drafting the Islanders. You know what I mean? Like when a car drafts another car, and they really are. And they're poised to overtake them. And I'm sure before the end of the year, that is exactly what's going to happen. And now this probably will speed things up a bit. But, honestly, have the Capitals lost anything with Todd Reardon in there? No. They don't look like they've missed a beat.
They had that slump in the middle of the year before the All-Star break where they lost 7 in a row. But they got a rest. They came out of the All-Star break and they started winning again. And they made a couple tweaking deals, and now they're the Capitals again. Now they have 83 points. The Islanders have 83 points. Carolina has 79.
Luckily the Islanders do have a strong tandem, and Gibson is not a bad guy to bring up with NHL experience. So I think they could get through this if it's not that long term. If it's like a month, then they're going to drop at least one spot in the standings. They could drop more than that.
Yeah. Now, let's see. Let me just switch back to the scores here. Now, Pittsburgh kept pace. They won 3-2 over Florida last night. Russ, the only thing I'm concerned about with Pittsburgh going into the playoffs, I mean, they got Crosby, they got Malkin, they got Kessel, they can score. They got Matt Murray, who's won 2 Stanley Cups. It's the defense. If the defense gets healthy, they had to go out at the deadline and get Gabranson and get Chris Weidman. They're playing Zach Trotman and a few other, like sort of journeyman guys. But if they can get their defense back, then I would be scared if I was. And there are not many things that I think Tampa is scared of, but in the first round, if you face the second wild card, and the second wild card is Pittsburgh, that's the worst. That's the worst possible matchup, because all the pressure's on you, Peter. All the pressure would be on Tampa, and Pittsburgh would be loosey goosey. And if their defense gets healthy, and Matt Murray plays hot, they could beat Tampa.
Yeah, they could. Anyway, I mean, anyone could beat anyone in a 7-game series.
Yeah,
it's just a matter of what you do and how you figure out.
Actually, I disagree with that.
The opposition. I think it can happen. All it takes is a goalie to get hot.
No, years back when the Atlanta Thrashers played the New York Rangers in the playoffs, I said the Rangers would sweep them. I don't think there was a person on earth that thought they were going to win a game. But anyhow, just saying.
Yeah, but I mean,
in this era, you're pretty close to right, though. You are.
Look, years gone by, I mean, upsets happen, but they weren't as regular. I mean, it took things like Steve Smith shooting the puck in his own net. It took things like weird things like that to happen. But, you can be a team that comes out of nowhere and gets hot at the right time. Things can go really well for a certain amount of time, and you can beat a team in a 7-game series. The key to doing so, though, is you have to be in the series from the start. You can't just wake up and go, oh, hey, we're down by 2 and it's, and hey, we better start playing. You've got to be playing from the start and doing the right things to begin with. And that's it. I think Pittsburgh could beat Tampa. I honestly think the Leafs could beat Tampa in a 7-game series. I think the Jets could too. Do I think it's likely to happen? No, but it could happen. And
I would just say this, and you could read my lips. Pittsburgh is a lock to make the playoffs.
Yes.
Okay. Read my lips. No new taxes.
I'll say
well,
this.
At least you got the joke.
I'll say this, and there may be no way that it's proved, but I think Toronto has a better chance against Tampa than they do against Boston. It's clearly Tampa will be. I think Tampa will be more skill on skill. I still think that they'll be favored. I still think they would beat the Leafs, but I think the Leafs would be able to, with their deeper forward lineup, would be able to compete with Tampa better than they will against Boston, because Boston plays a game that they simply have not matched up well against over the last few years. Now, one thing, and this is about tonight's game, and I just want to get your opinion on this, Peter. The Leafs are going to an all Smurf lineup for the on their fourth line. They're sitting Freddie Gauthier, and they're playing Nick Petan at center between Tyler Ennis and Trevor Moore. And a lot of Leaf fans are excited at this because that's probably the best skill that they've had on the fourth line all year. What do you? I mean, do you think Petan's more success? I think he's better at center, better at wing. Do you think? I mean, do you think?
I think it depends on the wingers he has with him versus whether he can. He can play wing or he can play center, but it depends on the wingers he has with him.
Right.
That's the issue with Nick Petan. Where Babcock will probably find the same challenges with Petan as Maurice did was reads through the neutral zone and defensive zone. Okay. That's where you need to watch Nick Petan play and say he's either going to have the right kind of wingers and support where his reads work well, or he's not reading it the way Babcock wants. And that's the thing you have to really focus on. So, I mean, if I'm Babcock, I try him at center until there's a reason not to play him at center.
I agree with that.
Right. I think what they're looking for, and they're going to experiment, they're going to rotate some of these forwards. I think what they're looking at right now is against Boston, because they're going to play Boston in the first round. They look at their fourth line and said, if we can outskill them and outspeed them, which this line would do, then we have an advantage rather than putting up Freddie Gauthier and going brawn on brawn. And when you don't have any brawn on your team and they have tons, it's sort of pointless to have one big guy when you could have three quick guys outspeeding the other team. So I think that's what they're looking at. Just to briefly touch on the schedule for tonight, and then we'll end it early here. It's Maple Leafs Canucks tonight. I'm sure there'll be a lot of Leaf fans at the arena in Vancouver, which we'll all be at for the draft in late June. Yep. Capitals Flyers, Blues and Ducks, and Flames and Golden Knights. That could be a playoff preview. Flames and Golden Knights. That should be a real good one.
That should be a real good one. The Capitals Flyers one will be interesting because Ovechkin's always played very well in that building. If he gets hot in that game, the Flyers got a real problem. I mean, he could light up Elliott, or it could be a very bad matchup, but we'll see. Maybe Elliott will still be, unconscious like he's been. I don't know.
All right, guys, good show. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Peter Tessier, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.